in the next 2 hours, we'll spend most of our time talking about these key indicators in population health or global health. So there are life expectancy, infant mortality rate, neonatal mortality rate, under 5 child mortality rate, and maternal mortality ratio. So I hope by the end of the class you'll have some basic understanding of these different terms and you'll be able to communicate with other global health workers. Okay? So the foundation of all these is in fact life expectancy. And I'm now giving the formal definition of life expectancy here. So the formal definition of life expectancy is how long you can live, on average. The average number of years of life at a given age in the population, if the current mortality experience were to continue. So remember, there's a very important term called at a given age. Different people, different people with different age, they have different life expectancy. You guys are 20 years old, your life expectancy is going to be longer than my life expectancy because you're going to live longer. Maybe you can live for another 60 years, maybe I can only live for another, who knows. So the key is that the life expectancy varies by age, and you have to be specific when you talk about life expectancy. And in general, what you see, the generally quoted indicator, life expectancy, means life expectancy at birth. So how long a newborn baby is going to live. Not how long you are going to live, or not how long I'm going to live. The newborn baby. Okay? So to show you, to sort of give a sense of what life expectancy really is, I'm going to use some of the slides from this very interesting website called Gapminder. Has anybody ever heard of this website? No? Okay. It's founded by a very interesting researcher, Hans Rosling. He's a global health professor from Sweden, and you're going to know him a lot more very soon. Okay, so this is a bubble plot, okay, showing the relationship between life expectancy and income. And this whole visualization was created by Hans Rosling. So here we're dividing the world based on the region. You can see there are different colors of it. And the size of the bubble is proportional to the population size. So anybody want to guess this big red bubble here?
China.
And this blue bubble? South Asia? South Asia. India, right? Okay, so, and these are their life expectancies. So it seems to be a relationship between income per person and life expectancy. So if you earn more, you're going to live longer. So make sure you make enough money. Now we're comparing two different countries. The first is called Burundi. It's a country in Middle Africa, which has a life expectancy at birth of 50 years. And the second is Sweden. Also a small country. You can see the very small bubble, but having a life expectancy of 81 years. So here's Burundi, somewhere close to the Lake Victoria. So the life expectancy at birth in Burundi is 50 years. Now I want you to think about, what does that mean? Does that mean that we're not going to see, or we'll rarely see elderly people in Burundi? Or does that mean that we're still going to see a bunch of elderly people in Burundi? So what does life expectancy mean? The life expectancy means that the expected life of a newborn baby. So let's now take an example of 5 newborn Burundian babies. Okay? So here's Burundian. Now we have 5 newborn babies: Pierre, Liz, June, Anne, and Sarah. Let's follow through their life course and see what happened to them in Burundi. Okay? So Pierre Here is very unlucky. He lived up to 1 year old, and he died of some infection of his lung called pneumonia. So pneumonia is infection of the lung, and he died. Okay, so rest in peace. And Liz is a bit more lucky. She got AIDS, HIV/AIDS, at the age of maybe 30 and died 6 years later. And Jean lived up to 57, but died of a car accident, a traffic accident. And Anne lived up to 72 and died of stroke. Sarah lived up to 84 and died of cancer. So what is the life expectancy of these 5 kids? One lived up to childhood and one to adulthood, and the other 2 up to elderhood. So 2 out of 5 actually get old in Burundi. So it's not that impossible to see elderly people in Burundi. But if you take the average, so average is a mean. Anyone from the math department? Okay, let me know if I do something wrong, okay? I just add up all these 5 different numbers, I divide it by 5, hopefully I get it right. It's 50. Okay, question? So having a life expectancy of 50 doesn't mean that all the people are going to die before 60 or before 50. It's just an average. So this is what life expectancy is. Okay, tricky question. What about the life expectancy at the age 30 in Burundi? Okay, if you already live up to 30, what do you think will be the, life expectancy? Is it going to be 50 as the other Burundians, or between 20 to 50? 20, less than 20? Between 20. So some say 50. 50 is too good. 20 may be too bad. Actually, for those who have lived up to 30, it means that they have passed the initial hurdle, the initial risk of dying, from childhood diseases. So, on average, they'll be the age that they die will be greater than 50. So the life expectancy of those at age 30 will be greater than 20, but definitely less than 50. Question? All right, so now we just saw that the life expectancy at birth in Sweden is 81 years. And do you think that most Swedes live 31 years longer than Burundians? It's related to our first question. No? Why? Why? Anybody?
Because even if the life expectancy is longer, that doesn't. Oh, okay.
Your name?
I'm Lipo Chin. Yeah, I'm Lipo Chin, and the reason I choose 2 is because even if the life expectancy is longer, but the okay.
Yes.
Even if the life expectancy is longer, that doesn't mean they will live exactly more. They will have a more 31 years up than Burundi.
It's just an average. Okay. Good, thank you. So let's see what's actually happening with those Swiss people. Here we have 5 Swedish people: Per, Lisa, Jen, Anton, and Sarah. So Per lived up to 63, committed suicide because of depression, and life is too smooth. And Lisa lived up to 77, died of stroke. Jan lived up to 84, died of heart attack. And Anton lived up to 88 and died of cancer of the prostate. Sarah lived up to 93 and got dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and died at 93. So their mean is 81. Okay. Now let's compare these two countries and these 5 pairs of persons. You'll see a very interesting phenomenon that living long, in these two countries is not that different. Okay, so these 2 pairs of people, they all live long, and there's some slight differences, but not that different. But dying at a young age means a very different thing in these 2 countries. So dying very young in Sweden means that you're dying at the age of 60 or 65 because their life expectancy is 81. But dying young in Burundi is like 1 year old or 5 year old. And that huge difference accounts for most of the gap of the 2 different life expectancy. Okay, so up to here, you should get a sense that child mortality actually matters a lot, especially when you measure life expectancy. Okay, because now in the world we still have many countries with unacceptably high child mortality rates. So there are 3 related measures of child mortality based on different milestones of life for newborn babies. So the first one is neonatal mortality rates. So by definition, neonatal means that those who are younger than 28 days, like the initial first month of life. And we have infant mortality rate, which means that, so infant is any time before the first birthday. We call it baby infant. And then we have under 5 mortality rate, which means up to 5 years old. As children grow up, they become more nasty. So, what's the situation in Burundi look like? Let me give you some real number in Burundi in 2010. So the neonatal mortality rate, for those less than 1 month old, the mortality rate is 42 out of 1,000 live births. So this kind of rate is generally measured as every 1,000 people, every 1,000 babies, newborn babies. So 42 out of 1,000, about 1 out of 25. 1 out of 25 babies will die before their first month. And about 1 out of 11 or 12 baby will die before they reach the first year of birthday. And then 1 out of 7 kids will die before they reach 5 years old. Do you see any pattern here in these numbers? We have 42 in the first month, 88 in the first year, and 142. Anything strange going on? Go ahead. Yes, but the difference in age is more than twice, right? Every stage is like, so it's growing. It's growing because the infant mortality rate includes the neonatal mortality rate because it's including the initial 12 months. So the first month was included. But good. Any other observation? Is that a linear? Is that a proportional thing, or is there any particular age that they're more prone, they're more likely to die?
we may come to a conclusion that in the first 12 months of the life, they are most dangerous in their lifetime. So if we can just deal with the problem about the newborn baby in the neonatal period, we can really have some benefit about the child mortality problem.
Your name?
Wang.
Wang Peiyuan. Very good, great. So, in fact, the neonatal mortality rate accounts for more than about half of the infant mortality rate. So 50% of those die before 1 year old. They die within their first month. And about 1/3 of them, of the under 5 mortality rate, comes from this, initial first month. So there's a reason that Chinese people celebrate do you know Chinese people celebrate their first month of birth? It's called 满月, right? Yeah. So ancient Chinese people know about public health. They know that they passed the initial month hurdle. Then if they pass it, it's more likely that they'll grow up into adulthood. So let's just very quickly look at the distribution of neonatal mortality rate. So those in the very dark color are those with a mortality rate of more than 45 per thousand. So like 1 out of 20 will die, within the month. So, from a regional perspective, these are Pakistan, Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Somalia, a lot of sub-Saharan countries, and there are some, in the middle, in Central and Middle America. So, remember we talked about the MDG, the Millennium Development Goal in the first class. Remember the MDG, there are 8 goals that the United Nations wants to achieve by 2015. And reducing child mortality is one major goal among these 8 goals. Okay, so they actually set up a target that they wanted to reduce by 2/3, before 2015. They want to reduce 66% of the child mortality rate compared to the baseline value in 1990. Okay, and they have some indicators such as under 5 mortality rate or infant mortality rate. Okay, and now you're familiar with that. And how are we doing in terms of the global progress of reducing child mortality? So these blue dots are the observed pattern of the under 5 mortality rates. So they've been declining. Okay, but where is our target? Our target is here, this dashed line. If you draw a line from these dots and assume that the trend will continue up until 2015, then do you think we're gonna reach this target? No, okay, we're far from that. So this decline needs to happen a lot faster. Okay, and what's even worse is that if you see this neonatal mortality, so this bar is the neonatal mortality. The decline in neonatal mortality hasn't been as dramatic as the decline in under 5 mortality. In fact, just the neonatal mortality itself is above our target for the whole under 5 mortality. Okay, so if we are not dealing with these neonatal mortality, we will never achieve this under 5 mortality target. So people have to thinking about how to decrease the neonatal mortality rate. Before that, we need to know the causes. What are the causes of death for these neonatal babies? Anybody want to guess why these infants, why these neonates, these newborn babies are particularly prone to die? What are they dying from? Lack of what? Nutrition. Okay. Good. Anything?
Their immune systems are not very
Is it like, you mean infection? Okay. Immune is not good, so infection.
Lack of proper healthcare.
Healthcare to
To those, how do you say that? Less than 1 year, less than
1 month, neonates,
1 month,
babies.
Because they need, because some region lack the proper resources to take care of this baby.
Okay. So that if they don't have the access, they'll die of diseases. Okay.
The environment they live are not very good for people to live.
The environment is not very good for
For them to live. For
them
babies
to live
survive.
because it's too.
Too cold or too hot.
Okay, because these newborn babies, they do not adjust to the environment. Okay, they are very vulnerable. If the environment is very harsh, they might not be able to live. Anything else?
And also consider the mother, because maybe the mother will have some disease that will affect them.
Great. So because we're talking about the things that happen right after childbirth, so we need to also think about the mothers. Okay, so let me just show you what are the causes of neonatal death among these babies. In fact, most of them are related to childbirth. Okay, it's not just about the baby; it's also about childbirth. So the majority is more than 1/3 of them die of infection. Okay, and because of their poor immunity, and also because of the poor hygiene during the childbirth process. The childbirth, you need to be follow some sterilizing procedure in order to prevent these newborn babies from being infected. In a rural place where there's lack of access to sterilizing, practice, they might get infection during the childbirth and they will die. And also preterm death, if they are not, mature enough, if they are born before 40 weeks of gestation, they are less likely to thrive through the environment. And also this asphyxia means the lack of oxygen during the birth process. So actually childbirth is a very risky, dangerous process. If anything goes wrong with the childbirth process, the little baby might not breathe and his heart might not beat. Then you need to do what? You need to do CPR. Okay. Then there needs to be a person who can do CPR to rescue these babies. If they don't do CPR, they will die of asphyxia, lack of oxygen. So, in response to this, mainly infectious disease is the main cause of this neonatal death. People have been thinking about, what can we do if we do not have access to a proper health care? So the fact is, in the world, around 60 million pregnant women, they do not have access to a good, well-trained healthcare worker to help them deliver their babies. So most of these childbirths happen at home and without a proper delivery, kit. So there's an NGO called PATH. They've been thinking about, if we right now, if we cannot improve their access to good health care, why don't we try to provide them with something that they can use by themselves? So they come up with this interesting idea of clean delivery kits. So something they can use to help reduce the risk of infection, even by themselves. So here's this example of this clean delivery kit. A very simple package a number of essential things for childbirth. Do you want to imagine what's inside this kit? Anybody know? Does anybody know how to deliver a kid? I thought you know. You're top students from the top university. You should know everything. Good.
I'm guessing maybe sterilized blankets, sterilized maybe scissors to cut the umbilical cord. No.
Great. That's right. Yeah. Anything else? So sterilized razor blade to cut the cord. What's that?
Gloves.
Oh, gloves. Okay. Gloves is too expensive. Anything easier? Just soap, hand soap. So a small bar of soap. So they contain a small bar of soap for hand washing before delivery, and the razor bar, and a clean plastic sheet. Just a plastic sheet for what? For the baby, for you to lay the baby. Okay. And there's also, if you can see this, clean string. Why do we need a string? We use a string to tie the cord, to prevent the blood coming out from the cord. So just 4 things, okay? Hand soap, clean plastic sheet, a string to tie the cord, and a razor blade to cut the cord. With these 4 things, they think they can, substantially reduce this child mortality rate. And also some kind of instruction for the women to know how to use it. But most of the time, the instruction cannot be written in words because remember, many women in this rural area they're illiterate. So you need some kind of pictorial illustration to tell them how to do it. Question: Do you think they can work? So, do you think to what extent can the use of clean delivery kits will reduce neonatal mortality rate? 10%, 30%, 50%, or even more? We'll have a tie here, 30 and 50%. So in fact, there's an article that just published last week in one of the best medical journals in the world. It's called PLOS Medicine. So in this issue of PLOS Medicine, people actually reported the results of the use of clean needle kits, clean delivery kits, and they found that the use of the kits was associated with almost 50% reduction in neonatal mortality rate in several South Asia countries, including India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. Okay, just as easy as this simple kit can prevent, half of the kids' death. What about the cost? Any guess? Less than $1. Well, I'm not reading. I don't have it here. It's about 27 cents in Bangladesh and 40% in India. So less than 50 cents. Okay. So this kind of intervention is considered to be highly cost effective. So with a very small amount of money, you can save a lot of lives. So that's one thing. Let's go back to the discussion question. When you want a target to reach, you need to think about how possible you can reach the target. Life expectancy is good, but how to reduce it? What kind of resource you need to reduce life expectancy? I mean, you need to spend a lot of money on it. But for this neonatal mortality rate, you can just with this less than 50 cents kits reduce a lot of neonatal and infant mortality rates. Questions? Shall we go for it? Is that the end of the story? Why?
Because there's still other 50%.
Good. We need to work on that. But before that, we can first try to remove the first 50%. You think it's sustainable or not?
Not really. Like it requires constant resources from somewhere else. It's usually not those countries themselves that can provide those resources.
You think this kit cannot be made by
It's
themselves?
kind of a temporary solution, I think, but overall, I'm not sure.
Okay. I think it's good to think about the term of sustainability. It's important. And actually, they're training people to make these kits at home. So they're trying to, train them to do it by themselves, not by, foreign aids.
I feel like everything is sanitized inside the bag, but then once you take it out, you're dealing with conditions that are much different than
Right.
inside.
Very good. Good point. So what you're seeing here, the 50% mortality reduction is in a study setting, in a clinical trial setting, that people are following the standard practice and doing this right thing. But what is it going to look like in the real life practice? We're not sure. So we need to test that again in the real life setting to see if the 50% is still 50% or reduced to 30 or 20%. So in brief, more studies will need to be done to follow how these kits is actually working in the field. But still, I think it's a very promising tool and a good start to tackle with neonatal mortality. Okay, so I think it's late. Let's take a 10-minute break. We continue with our second half. Is the maternal mortality ratio. As I just mentioned, childbirth is a highly risky thing that both the mother and the kid are suffering from a certain amount of risk. So it's important that we keep track of this number. And the definition of maternal mortality ratio is the number of women who die as a result of pregnancy and childbirth related complications. And because it's somewhat less common compared to infant and child death, the measurement is based on 1 out of 100,000 live births. So it's not like 1 out of 1,000, it's 1 out of 100,000. And here's again the bubble plot showing that maternal mortality ratio is again strongly related to GDP per capita. So here we have on the top of the graph countries from sub-Saharan African having a maternal mortality ratio of about 1,000 per 100,000, so it's like 1%. So 1% of the mother will die because of this childbirth activity. So if I were a woman there, I wouldn't give birth. 1% is too high. And what about the related Millennium Development Goals? So also because this is a very important target, so they have a specific target for MDG. So which is we want to reduce by 2015 75% of the maternal mortality ratio. And how are we doing? This first bar, so this is sub-Saharan Africa, which has the highest maternal mortality ratio. The first bar is where we were in 1990, so the baseline. And the second bar is where we were in 2008. Okay, and our goal, our target in 2015 is here. Okay, so we're very behind. Okay, in the next 7 years, we need to make this happen. Okay, but this is not like what we just talked about, the neonatal mortality, because using this simple kit is going to reduce probably the mortality of neonates, but not going to help much for the women because most of the emergency condition associated with childbirth for women needs to be done with a well-trained personnel. So it's now go back to the issue of access, the access to health care, especially for those in a very rural area. How can they, receive this proper medical management when some emergent obstetric, childbirth condition happens? Okay, so this is it about the measures. So we have gone through life expectancy, the 3 different measures of child mortality, and the maternal mortality ratio. These are the most commonly used indicators of health. Any question? If not, go ahead.
I would like to know what are, what are the factors that are involved when during birth, while the mother is giving birth to a child, how can she die? What are the factors?
Right. Why is she dying from childbirth, right? Yeah. Okay. So there are a couple of things she can die. The first of it is massive bleeding, blood loss, because childbirth is a dangerous thing. Sometimes the blood loss will stop spontaneously, but sometimes the placenta, the thing that connects the baby and the mother, the placenta, some part of the placenta remain inside the uterus. So it's an emergent condition. Sometimes the surgeon even needs to remove the uterus of the mother in order to save life. And also stroke, mother, because the fluid of the baby, amniotic fluid of the baby can go into the mother's blood, and it can cause stroke. It can cause blood clots. And also infection, right before and after childbirth, the infection can also affect the mother and also causing death. Yeah, so there are a number of it. Okay. So we'll come back to this question. So in the beginning of this class, we talk about the choice of these, individual indicators. Now that we have a better sense of these different indicators, what they mean, what do we do? Do you think we have a better idea of how to choose, or is there more thing we need to know? In fact, if you just look at either child mortality, this mortality numbers, or life expectancy, this kind of general measure, it's still somewhat unclear how to focus your efforts. How do you target your money to invest on? So, in fact, 20 years ago, a group of people have been thinking about this. How, if you want to prioritize, I heard about the word prioritize in the discussion. If we want to prioritize our very limited resource to invest on health, we first need to know, we first need to have a very good, or at least a very universal measure of health that can be applied to all countries of the world. So these 2 professors, they're very famous professors, Chris Murray from Harvard at that time, and Alan Lobates from University of Queensland. They came up with this idea of global burden of disease, so also known as GBD. So you need to know this word, okay, after coming up from this class. So in brief, GBD tries to quantify, they try to measure, what is the impact of different diseases on human beings, and what is the distribution, how these impact is distributed across different countries, say high-income countries, low-income countries, and what is the trend of these burden of disease over time. So it's actually, you can imagine, it's a huge amount of work. So it took them, more than 10 years to do this initial one, and they're doing this updates. So what can you do if you want to know, what's to invest on? The easiest thing is to look at the cause of death, right? What people are dying from. what diseases are people dying from. So they first try to look at these leading causes of death in different countries, and this is the results from high-income countries, those OECD countries. And you're going to see a number of names of diseases. I know not all of you are from health-related background, but these names of the diseases, you probably need to be aware of it because you're taking a class of global health. You cannot be ignorant when people talk about some names of the diseases. But don't worry, I'll introduce each of you to you. So ischemic heart disease is heart attack. It's a lack of blood in your heart vessel. Okay, it's usually caused by the narrowing of the blood vessel, and because of obesity, because of high cholesterol, etc. And heart attack is the leading cause of death in high-income countries, in developed countries, and followed by cerebral vascular disease, which is stroke, essentially. Very similar causes compared with heart attack, obesity, cholesterol, no exercise. And then we have a number of cancers. Here they're breaking cancers by sites. So they have lung cancer here, number 3, colon and rectal cancer, which means the cancer of the intestine, large intestine, and breast cancer and stomach cancer. So there are 4 different cancers. And things like Alzheimer's disease and dementia, diabetes, infection of the respiratory system is also known as pneumonia. Okay, the infection of the lung. So these are the leading causes of death in high-income countries. What do you think are the causes of these sort of disease of civilization? These are the sort of lifestyle-related disease. What are the causes of these diseases? Katrina?
Well, America is a good example because obesity is a huge problem. They face the same issues.
Right. Obesity. Anything else?
Lack of exercise.
Lack of exercise.
Nutrition in general, because you don't need to be obese in order to have high cholesterol levels.
Right. Unhealthy diet,
Maybe the pressure of work.
The pressure, stress. Good. Yeah. High stress work, high stress lifestyle. So these are all sort of high lifestyle related disease happening in high income countries. And what about the middle and low income countries? What do you think the leading causes of death will look like? Do you think they have a similar pattern with mostly chronic diseases as high-income countries, or do you think it's going to be predominantly infectious diseases, or do you think it's kind of a mixture of the both? What do we do? It's not working. Okay. How do I make this work? Okay. Let's see. Infectious disease. Some saying chronic disease. Some saying a mixture. Okay, this is what's happening in low and middle income countries. So the leading cause of death is actually still heart attack. Okay, and cerebral vascular disease. So stroke, heart attack. Because what's happening nowadays is very different from what used to be like 20, 30 years ago. Because as you just see from Hans Rosling's presentation, that many of the sort of low-income countries, they're having economic development. They're gaining access to good diets, not good diet, high-calorie diets, and sort of all kinds of stress related to it, and lack of exercise happening at the same time. So don't think this is only a disease of modern society or disease of developed country. It's happening in developing country, and we're worried that it's going to be even worse. So it's going to be even worse. We're worried that it's going to be much worse. And then followed by a number of infections, pneumonia, infection of the lung, HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria. So HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, TB, and malaria, they are like big three leading infectious diseases in low and middle income countries. And remember, we have one people in Burundi died of traffic accident. Traffic accident is a huge issue in low and middle income countries, in fact. Okay, so we're not done if we just look at the death, okay? Because the issue is that not all deaths are equal. Why? If you think about death for a 1-year-old kid, just like the peer example in Burundi, who dies of childhood infection, pneumonia, compared to a death of cancer at the age of 70. Do you think we should put the same weight to this different condition? Some people think we shouldn't, because for those who die at a very young age, they're called premature death. They die too early. They think that these premature deaths needs special attention, that they needs to be accounted more than the death of the elderly, say heart attack or cancer. So this GBD researchers, they developed a scheme to actually estimate the years of a life that is lost due to premature death. So for example, a child that is dying from infection at the age of 5, he will have maybe 50 or 60 years of life lost because he's losing this whole range of life, compared to a death of cancer at the age of 70. Maybe he's losing only 5 or 3 years because of the illness. And if you do this rank of years of life lost, what do you think will be the leading cause of death? Severe heart disease, HIV/AIDS, infection, pneumonia, or so perinatal condition means that the conditions associated with childbirth, right before and after childbirth. So like, what do you see from the infant mortality rate, neonatal mortality rate? Oh, we have a tie here, which means there's a huge amount of uncertainty. Okay, so this is the rank of these diseases based on years of life lost because of premature death. So pneumonia, lower respiratory infections, actually came out as a leading cause of years of life lost, because a lot of these infections actually happen in infants and in children. Okay, so because they happen at a very young age, so they account for a lot of years of life lost. Then we have IHD is heart attack. Perinatal condition, again, because these condition causes neonatal mortality or infant mortality. Then HIV/AIDS is because it's preferentially affecting these young people, young adults. Then followed by these all kinds of conditions. More issues. So these researchers again think about death is not the only issue that we're concerned about. There are many diseases. There are many non-fatal diseases. They're not killing people, but they're affecting our lives. For example, someone who are paralyzed because of an accident or because of stroke, they're bedridden for the rest of their life. They may not die immediately. They may live for 20, 30 years. Or blindness. Someone who's blind can live for 60, 70 years, but their quality of life is not like a sort of optimally healthy people. So they kind of think that the years of healthy life lost because of this non-optimal status, because of these different illnesses, should be accounted for. So they try to come up with a measurement of this social preferences or social values about how different non-fatal diseases affect people. So what do you think? What do you think it would be the leading causes of the years of life lost because of this non-fatal diseases in low and middle-income countries? Cancer, stroke, HIV/AIDS, or depression. Ready? HIV/AIDS. Because living in HIV/AIDS is a painful status and it's big suffering. But in fact, the leading cause of years of life lost, this non-fatal life lost, is predominantly depression. They try to come up with a way to measure the impact of depression on a person's life, and it came out to be very huge. And the prevalence, of the disease is very high. So depression is very common disorder, even in low and middle income countries. Okay, then there's a number of conditions associated with. So cataract is the opacity of the lens of your eye, 白内障. Okay, vision loss, vision disorder, hearing loss, arthritis, joint pain, perinatal conditions. Sometimes they don't die, but they have a lifelong sequelae, lifelong complications. Schizophrenia, protein malnutrition. So finally, they came up with a summary score that summed up the impact of the disease by accounting for both the life lost from premature death, the death, and the years of life lost because of this non-fatal health status. So the YLL plus the YLD is what they call disability-adjusted life year. So it is a way to quantify the impact of the disease, accounting for both the mortality and the sort of morbidity, the illness, non-fatal illness. Last question of the day. So what do you think would be the leading cause of DALI in low and middle income countries? Depression. Depression is causing a lot of years of life lost due to disability or infection. HIV/AIDS, perinatal conditions. It's hard choice. Okay, we have perinatal conditions. Again, because they're affecting predominantly those newborn babies, and lower respiratory infections, pneumonia, because again they affect the young folks, and then heart attack, HIV/AIDS, etc. So this is, if you're Bill Gates, this is the causes of death that you need to invest on. You need to combat. If you believe in DALI, and if you believe that these DALI are properly measured. Anybody got all these questions right? No? I thought it's NTU. Somebody should know it. Got one wrong? Anybody got one? Just one wrong? No? Okay. I'm sad. So, in addition to these causes of death, of DALI, actually what we more wanted to know is how to prevent the causes of the disease. So this is a diagram showing that the consequence, the death, is caused by disease. But the disease is in turn caused by risk factors, as you just mentioned, unhealthy diet, obesity, lack of exercise, etc. So these people actually go a step further. Instead of leading causes of DALI, they look at leading risk factors of DALI. What are the root causes? What are the upstream causes of these diseases? So, and it's a complicated work, but then you got this, targets that is really the thing we could intervene on. For example, underweight, unsafe sex, high blood pressure, smoking, alcohol, cholesterol, etc. This is the hard targets that we could work on. Okay, so the number one risk factor again comes up because the daily measure is a measure including the premature death. So the risk factor associated with childhood underweight. So if you're Bill Gates, you wanna save the most daily you want. What do? You feed the kid. Okay, you send them food. But be careful. Look at the bottom of this list. What we have here. Okay, you have to feed them, but don't feed them too much. Because, as I just mentioned, in middle and low-income countries, this growing epidemic, they call it epidemic of obesity, is happening. We're seeing that in India, the incidence of diabetes and obesity is like skyrocketing. Because there are different hypotheses, but because they're gaining access to food, and they don't have a very good knowledge about how to eat healthy, the issue of obesity is really, really growing. So if you're Bill Gates, you need to be very careful about feeding them and not to feed them too much. That's the sort of take-home message. Okay, so the most recent version of this GBD, Global Burden of Disease, of 2010. So what we just see is the last version. The most recent version is coming out this year. My advisor, when I was a doctoral student, happened to be on the board. He told me that this is coming out in the next, in the second half of the year. So, okay. This is my progress report to you. Today, we cover the sort of basic measurement of health, including life expectancy, 3 different measures of child mortality, neonatal, infant and child, the first month, the first year, and the first 5 years. Then we have the maternal mortality ratio, and the global burden, the concept of global burden of the disease, and how they came up with this disability-adjusted life year, including accounting for the life years lost due to premature death, and the healthy life year lost due to non-fatal illnesses. Okay, if you get this all these terminologies a sense, then I think I'm successful. If you don't, come to me. Okay, questions? Confused? Clear?
So, how do they count depression as I mean, if people can be depressed, but they can still live it. People can be depressed, but while they are depressed, they can still work or act normally. So how to count depression as a factor of the YOD?
Right. So you mean depressed people, they can work, they can function in life? Yeah. Is that real?
In another fact, maybe some people in this classroom are suffering from depression, but they are still coming to class.
Are you sure? They look happy. Oh, somebody's sleeping, but okay. Okay, I mean, this is a good question because, in fact, there's a formal definition of depression. It's not just depressed mood. They have a guideline of diagnosing what we call major depression. So one of the criteria of major depression is the lack of ability to work, and even the lack of interest to live. So somebody would commit suicide. But I mean, this is a good question of how can we measure different diseases in terms of daily. How do you weigh depression against blindness or against hearing loss So it's actually a social value, social preference. And what's most commonly done is that they actually send out questionnaire to ask people with the disease. If you before you get the disease and after you get the disease, if you think perfect health is 100%, what do you think your current state is? And they give a value to it. So it's a subjective value, but it's validated through questionnaire. They ask, as far as I know, more than 20,000 people around the world, and it might be different from culture to culture and from country to country. Yeah, but good question. Okay. Tired? No, I am. So let's stop. Let's stop with today's lecture, but I have one last thing. So next week. Sorry.
You give us some reason for people's YLD during the course, but I think the basic reason for people's YLD is their economic conditions, because it is their economic conditions that really makes people to depress and make people to be in lack of medical care. How can we explain the effect of economic condition in the YLD?
Okay. Can you see that? So he's asking your name?
My name, Chinese name is Wang Chen.
Wang Chen. Wang Chen thinks that poverty is a big issue. Poverty is the main cause of these, suffering, and I agree. But so poverty or economic can very likely be the root cause, the very upstream cause of the disease or suffering. But here we're only talking about the sort of more downstream, when we can really narrow down to diseases or risk factors of diseases, as I just showed. But I think you're right that upstream to these risk factors, I just showed the risk factors, like undernutrition, high blood pressure. Upstream to these risk factors, we have social determinants. Back to Professor Zhang's lecture last week, they're determinants of people's risk factor and people's health. And if you really want to tackle down this very root cause of disease or suffering, you need to go back to this. But people argue that these root causes are often very difficult to tackle. If I'm okay, let's just give money to everybody, but it's not possible. But if there's something down this way, say high blood pressure or obesity or education, the health conscious, some hard endpoints that we could work on. People think this might be more cost effective, but I think you're right that we still need to pay attention to these upstream causes of all these health issues. So next week, we'll ask you to bring your laptop. Laptop? Computer?
Yeah, but some people like me don't have a laptop.
So you can share with your colleague. It's okay. But that's not for the whole class. It's just for the third hour. And just want you to do some exercise of your homework assignment. And for those who are going to bring the laptop, make sure you have the battery lasting for at least 1 hour, because we're going to do it for about an hour. And then I want you to read a paper. It's posted on SIBA course website. It's also published on PLOS Medicine, one of the best medical journals, also last week. It's about using text messaging in mobile phone to help control malaria. Okay, so mobile phone, text messaging can control malaria. Do you use Line? You don't use Line. Maybe in the future, Line can help you control malaria. Okay, so I want you to read this article, and we'll come with a discussion as this session.